Smokey Bear's birthday today. Yay, say hi, Maureen and Robert.
Hey
Hello.
there, hi.
Happy birthday, Smokey.
Thank you all for joining us today. We're so very excited to have you with us. We are celebrating Smokey Bear's birthday today. His 78. Wow, that's a long time, Robert.
Yes, it is. 78. It's quite a long time. I hope I can make it to that wise old age as our wise Smokey.
Thanks all of you who are joining us out there. I'm Darlie Newman. I'm the host and producer of Travels with Darlie on PBS. And I'm being joined by Maureen Brooks and Robert Westover from the Forest Service. And for the next 50 minutes today, we're going to be hanging out together, celebrating a very special day for a very special bear. We know him as Smokey Bear, and I think we should, first and foremost, be all wishing him happy birthday right now. So please type into the chat, wish Smokey Bear happy birthday. And please use the hashtag #SingForSmokey today. And we also want to hear where you're coming in from. It's so fun to always see where I'm coming in from Montreal today. I'm actually traveling and filming right now. Robert, where are you chiming in from?
From my home in Old Town Manassas in Northern Virginia.
Maureen?
All right. And I work in the Washington office, and you can see I'm in Smokey Bear's office today.
So we're all coming. Thank you guys for using the hashtag. Alan, Jess, Joe, hello from Massachusetts. We've got people coming in from Yorktown, Virginia, Gainesville, Florida. I love seeing people coming in from all over the USA. We've got Minnesota, Nevada. Wow, Sing for Smokey. Thanks, Bobette, for using the hashtag. We've got Roxbury, New Jersey, Arkansas. Are you seeing this, Maureen and Robert?
No, we can't see it.
No.
That's exciting.
Take your word, Darlie. That's exciting.
I'm checking out the comments, guys. I can't help it. Well, so let's just give a rundown that a lot of people don't know that the Smokey Bear was first actually created as a campaign by the Ad Council, the National Association of Foresters, and the USDA Forest Service to help prevent forest fires, which we've changed the terminology. We're going to talk about that today. But I'm kind of excited because Maureen and Robert are experts on Smokey Bear. They're going to be helping us separate fact from fiction today. And I think if you guys are joining us, you're going to want to stay because there will be songs, there will be information. This is going to be a lot of fun. And I'm just going to give a couple shout outs. Cheryl, thanks for joining us from Springfield. And I see that Meg is joining us and Ron. Everyone's wishing happy birthday. Thanks, Taylor from Virginia, using the hashtag #SingForSmokey. And again, oh, look, Mary is joining us from Orange Cove, California. Happy birthday, Smokey. We're so excited to have you all here for us. So let's start out and hear a little bit about Maureen, because we'd love to know people's backgrounds so that everyone out there can understand where you're coming from and how you got involved with Smokey Bear at the Forest Service.
Well, thank you, Darlie. I got my start in my career as a forest technician on the Monongahela National Forest in West Virginia. And from there, I went to the Maryland Forest Service, where I worked as a forest ranger for a number of years, and then came back to the Forest Service in 2005 to work in state and private forestry portion of the Forest Service, and then was fortunate enough to come to the Washington office in 2018. I've had prevention in my career most of the time, especially when I was working for the state of Maryland. I was a prevention specialist there, so I started working for Smokey then and continued that work when I came to the Forest Service. So it's exciting to be now working in the Washington office directly for Smokey.
And so just want to say thank you to Maureen for the work that you're doing, because it is very important. That's why we're on here today, not just to say that we love Smokey Bear and we're celebrating Smokey Bear's birthday, but also wildfire prevention, very important and timely topic right now. So Maureen, have there been some great moments that you want to share with us throughout your career and working on this?
Well, yes. A lot of the highlights, though, include, when people come up to you and they start singing Smokey's song, or they talk about the time they met Smokey when they were younger, just their share their memories, and it's also seeing the excitement of little kids when they're meeting Smokey for the first time.
I love that. And Robert, I'm kind of excited to hear from you as well. Can you share with us a little bit about your background with Smokey Bear? Because I've heard the stories, but I think you guys out there are going to love hearing about this.
Yes. Well, I want to start with saying that I'm a product of parents getting young kids out into the wildlands of our nation, in this case, national forest. My parents took us to the Shasta Trinity when I was a kid, and I just became fascinated with our wildlands after that. And I have a career in journalism and then PR in advertising. So I decided when I'd finally done all the mountains I could climb in the private sector that I would really love to work for the Forest Service. And the job opened up. And so I became a Forest Service public affairs specialist. And I got brought on the Smokey campaign early on with the creation of something we call the Honorary Forester Program. And that was the brainchild of one of my coworkers. I got to give him a shout out. Keith Riggs did an amazing job coming with this concept. And he developed it because he had read an article that Betty White had wanted to be a forest ranger in the day. Yes. And at that time, unfortunately, women could not serve as forest rangers. So Betty took another career path, and we're very glad she did. She has made so many people in her lifetime.
Who doesn't love the Golden Girls out there? If you love the Golden Girls, use the hashtag Sing for Smokey and put it in the chat. I have rewatched it recently, and I'm telling you, it is a fabulous show. She
was a brilliant actress, and she really loved animals, and she really loved our wildlands. And so my coworker had seen this, and he thought, hey, why don't we create an honorary forester program, and let's have Betty White as our first honorary forest ranger. And idea got floated, and we said, let's do it. And then we contacted her agent, and Miss White was very excited about it and wanted to do it. So we had a big event at the Kennedy Center. This is, I think, about 2010. And the guy who normally plays Smokey couldn't play Smokey. There was a problem. And so they sort of looked around the room, and by code, Smokey has a whole code of what he's supposed to do and what he's not supposed to do, which I was unaware of. But at any rate, they looked around the room, and one of the things in the code is you're not allowed to say if you ever played Smokey. So I'm not saying I played Smokey, but the guy that looks a lot like me and talks a lot like me was the guy in the room that could don the outfit and not disappoint Miss White. So the guy had a very good time on stage. He danced, and because he was unaware of the code, Smokey is not supposed to dance on stage, but he did a little Smokey dance, and Miss White loved that. He also hugged her and gave her the bear, little stuffed bear that you see pictures of. So it was quite an exciting moment. And then later that afternoon, we had a reception for Mrs. White at the Kennedy Center, and I got to sit right next to her, and I whispered in her ear, and I said, I know the guy who played Smokey. And she smiled at me and wrote a lovely note on that person's business cards that says, with so much love, Betty White, Smokey. So it was to Smokey with much love, Betty White. So it's pretty cool moment for that person who got to play Smokey for Betty. And then the next big campaign was his 75th birthday. And that was really quite an undertaking. We worked in partnership with the Ad Council and other organizations as well to make this a huge success. And it really turned out to achieve much more than any of us ever thought possible. In fact, on his birthday, his 75th birthday, we were the third trending social media campaign in the nation. Sing for Smokey, it was huge. And that was quite a moment to be part of the Smokey campaign, if you will, the ongoing Smokey campaign. So those are two pretty cool stories that I have to share about Smokey.
That's awesome. So rewarding. I mean, first of all, gotta love meeting Betty White. That's pretty cool. And then, but also just the work that you both are doing. I mean, one reason I'm here hosting this today is because, like a lot of you joining us today, I love our public lands. I love getting out in nature. I've visited and filmed in so many wonderful national forests. And I just want to give a couple shout outs. Joe Morse is using the hashtag Sing for Smokey. Keep using the hashtag out there, people. We love it. We've got the Backcountry Trail Patrol on. Bob Miller is sharing some wonderful memories. Vicki Ballinger. We've got Dee Dee on talking about some forest fire information from New Mexico, which is very, very good related to the history of Smokey Bear. Michelle. So thank you all for joining us. And again, Pete, keep telling us in the chat some of your thoughts, your favorite memories of Smokey Bear, some things you like about him, because I love seeing these. I know everyone out there loves to see your comments. So thank you, and keep wishing Smokey happy birthday. But we want to move on. Maureen, I'm kind of interested to hear more of the backstory on Smokey Bear. How did this all begin? How did Smokey Bear's legacy get so big? Tell us a little bit about the history.
Well, human-caused wildfires were a problem in our country. They've been a problem for a number of years. And as we entered World War II, so this story goes back, of course, obviously Smokey's 78 today, so the story goes back a number of generations here. So as we were entering into World War II, one of the, we did have 9 out of 10 forest fires were caused by humans. And there were some events related to the war where it became apparent that our mainland here could be affected by forest fires if they were to be started on the west coast of our United States. And as a matter of fact, there was actually a Japanese submarine that did shoot some shells into the forests of Southern California. So it became really clear that not only for the need for the resources, the forest resources that we have in this country, that we really needed to protect our forest. So at that time, there was some early wildfire prevention advertising that went on, and the Forest Service worked with the Ad Council, which was then called the Wartime Advertising Council, and also the National Association of State Foresters, to develop a campaign. So we, in that partnership, they determined that they thought they looked to Disney, and they saw that that Bambi was very popular as an animal and conveying a message. So there was a year where Bambi was loaned to the program and was in that very first poster, but that was just a loan. And during that time, the 3 partners determined that having an animal was actually quite successful in getting the message out. And so on August 9th, 1944, the Cooperative Fire Prevention Council actually released the first poster of Smokey Bear, and it was done by artist Albert Staley, and he showed that first poster where it says, "Care will prevent 9 out of 10." So it's that message of 9 out of 10 forest fires caused by humans, and because of that, we can do something about it. So that's how we ended up with the Smokey Bear campaign.
I love seeing these kind of retro and older posters and images of the original Smokey campaign.
And that's the first poster there. Mm-hmm.
So cool. So neat to be able to see these and bring these out for everyone today. Well, share with us a little bit more. I've seen a couple of folks that are definitely Smokey Bear savvy out there, putting some of their favorite facts and things they know about Smokey Bear. But Maureen, you can write a letter to Smokey Bear. He has his own zip code. How did that come about? And share with us that, because I love that he has social media accounts, but you can write letters to Smokey Bear.
Right. So that started after, so we had the symbol of Smokey Bear that started in 1944, but it was in 1950 when there was a fire on the Lincoln National Forest where there was a cub that was hurt in the fire. And that cub, you saw pictures of that earlier, was brought to Washington, D.C. and lived at the National Zoo for a number of years. That is what we call our living Smokey. So Smokey was in residence there. And while he was there, children just started writing letters to him. And at the zoo, you can still see the little post office that was Smokey's post office. And after they got there got to be such a huge volume of mail that the Postal Service gave him his own zip code, and it's 20252. So you can still write to Smokey today through his zip code, and just Smokey Bear headquarters, 20252, Washington, D.C.
That's maybe the easiest physical address that I've heard about to date.
Right. Yep. And, there's only one other, well, I will say two others, the president and the first lady. They have their own zip codes, but they're other than that, those are the 3 personalized zip codes in the country.
That's amazing. What an iconic thing of having our own zip code, and neat that people can learn more about it when they go to our nation's capital and explore more Smokey Bear history.
I'd like to point out Mickey Mouse doesn't even have his own zip code. So
we got a rivalry going on here. Well, again, thank you all for continuing to join us today. Chad and Mauricio, Sue coming in, wishing happy birthday. Again, use the hashtag Sing for Smokey when you guys are posting some of these things, and we're going to try to call them out. And we also want to let you know we're going to continue chatting and sharing this wonderful history and some more images, hopefully, as well. But we are going to be taking questions at the end of this. So if you have questions, please do feel free to put them into the chat, because we want to make sure we get enough information out there that you all feel good about celebrating the birthday with us. We're going to try. And again, I did tease that we will have songs, but I was posting on Twitter to promote this the other day. And Robert, I had someone tweet to me and say, Smokey Bear looks different today. He looks very fit, by the way. Maybe he's been working out a bit. Can you share with us how his image has changed over the years?
Absolutely. I mentioned Mickey Mouse earlier jokingly, but as we all know, Mickey Mouse started out very simplistic, and then, of course, evolved over the years to the Mickey Mouse that we know today. The same thing happened with Smokey. As you can see from the earlier pictures, he started out actually more bear-looking, let's say, not quite so humanoid-looking. And over the years, he sort of evolved with the times and became a more almost like a humanoid type-looking bear, and more approachable, more adorable, if you will, to the general public. And so it's wonderful to see the advancement of that. You also see the advancement of his ability, his message. He says more than his message now. When you can prevent wildfire on his social media account, Smokey is quite conversational now. So that's another advancement to keep up with the times, because the most important thing is obviously we want our young people to connect with Smokey. I remember I gave this beautiful little footboard that we had done with pictures of Smokey to these 3-year-old kids in the neighborhood. A couple of them live down the street, and those kids just loved that. I mean, they so connected with those images of Smokey. So it's really important that we keep him up to date, up with the time. So yeah, he is a little more buff now than he was in the day. And of course, that goes along with the more physical fitness attitude we have in our country right now, which is a good thing. So really pleased to see the development of Smokey over the years.
Yeah. And we had for many years, I mentioned that Albert Staley was the first artist of Smokey, but for many years we had an artist in residence, I will say, in the Forest Service. That was Rudy Wendelin, and he's really responsible for keeping that iconic image of the bear. And, we honor him continually today because his work has spanned now, decades. And, he kept, I guess, evolving the image, but very carefully over the years. So Smokey and Rudy are both part of our history of Smokey, and they will be forever. So.
And at this point, I'd like to point out that his portraits of Smokey, they're quite large, some of them, and they are protected at the Agricultural Library in Beltsville in temperature-controlled rooms, and occasionally they're brought out for public display. And during the 75th, we were able to bring them out for public display at the Smithsonian National Portrait Gallery. So that was an exciting night.
Yeah.
These images are just so neat to see, and I know everyone out there is really enjoying them. And again, thank you all so much for all the comments and all the happy birthdays. I'm so excited for later on when we sing happy birthday. Stay tuned. And John Friedman is saying the bear at the National Zoo came after that. We're talking about all the history. Thanks, John, for your comments. And Deborah Michael, thanks for wishing happy birthday to Smokey Bear. But one thing we do want to clear up, which I think Robert can help explain, is that today we're saying Smokey Bear, but I was reading a bit about the history, and I used to sing the song Frosty the Snowman during the holidays as a child. And I noticed that the songwriting team, Steve Nelson and Jack Rollins, they wrote Frosty the Snowman. They also came up with a song that included Smokey the Bear in the lyrics. And a lot of people then started saying Smokey the Bear, Smokey the Bear. Now, is that hurting your ears? Because share with us why it's actually Smokey Bear and it's not Smokey the Bear.
Yeah, it's fingernails on a chalkboard, and I hear the. I always joke with people. I always say, "Well, you wouldn't refer to Queen the Elizabeth, right? It would be Queen Elizabeth." And in the same way, Smokey does not have a "the" in his name. It is Smokey Bear. And yes, the songwriting team you mentioned, I think they were a little biased towards "the" in the name, and I understand that it can be sung without the. So, just saying, it doesn't have to be there.
Mm-hmm. So all of you out there who have been asking, because we have seen comments coming in, it's Smokey Bear, not Smokey the Bear. So
right.
if you are out there.
Oh, and I want to point out, I did do a search, in the day when you would do searches, Google searches, you'd come up with far more Smokey the Bear, right? However, now, since we've been driving this home a lot, there's more than 3 times the proper Smokey Bear now, not Smokey the Bear. I just did that this morning to double check to see, and it was 3-1. So it was pretty exciting to see. Yes, Smokey Bear's winning out.
Well, I kind of have a little bit of a challenge for you, Robert, because maybe some people out there don't know the song. I don't know if you'd be able to share a few of the lyrics for us. Maybe you could sing it for us.
Okay. I do know the song well, of course. So I will do my best. And see how it goes. Da-da-da-dun-dun-dun. With the ranger's handheld shovel and a pair of dungarees, you will find him in the forest, always sniffing at the breeze. People stop and pay attention when he tells them to beware, because everybody knows that he's the fire prevention bear. Smokey Bear, prowling and a growling and a sniff in the air. He can find a fire before it starts to flame. That's why they call him Smokey. That was how he got his name.
All right. Nice.
Hey. If you all like that out there, please post in the comments. If you want more of Robert singing later on, we want to see it. Smokey, that's going on TikTok later and all of Smokey Bear's social media accounts. Stay tuned for the replays. We are matching that up. That was actually amazing, Robert. I'm really impressed that you did that. Kudos to you. We're getting Dolores says kudos. Stefan says awesome. Gloria, Jeanette, everyone out there is loving the song. So thank you so much for singing. There will be another song later. People, stay tuned. So that's so great. But again, we do want to keep giving some good information too. And that song was good information. So one thing I wanted to share that I thought was interesting that, Robert, you might be able to expand upon. So national forests are not just forests. I've traveled around. I've been to Medewa National Tallgrass Prairie in Illinois. There's a national forest that's a rainforest in Puerto Rico. So the terminology has changed over time. It used to be forest fires, but now we should use the term wildfires. Can you explain why?
Sure, absolutely. In fact, I point out that I've written several blogs about Darley's visits, and one of them was to a forest, and the other one was to a grassland. So yes, we do have grasslands, and they're very important. In fact, we have about 16 million under management. And correct me if I'm wrong, Maureen, about 20, 25 years ago, we took this issue on because, of course, Smokey's line then was only you can prevent forest fires. But of course, as we know, forests and our wildlands are more than just trees. So the concept became, well, what about wildland fires? What about wildfire? And so that then was decided to be his new tagline. And that was quite controversial at the time, I want to point out. I did some research on that. A lot of people were not happy with that. And same thing with the things stick in people's minds. So even though his new slogan is only you can prevent wildfire, you still hear it all the time, only you can prevent forest fires. We don't have a real gripe with that. The point is that, humans are causing these things mostly, 80% somehow that Maureen mentioned. So, but yeah, it was to be more inclusive of those beautiful grasslands we have out there and other types of wildernesses.
So we should use the term wildfires now to be more inclusive.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Yeah, because it's more inclusive. But don't be freaked out if we hear forest fires. So.
Well, and thank you, Linda, for joining us, saying happy birthday from the Allegheny National Forest in Pennsylvania. And we've got a lot of great comments coming in. Again, I also want to encourage you all to use the hashtag Sing for Smokey, but to also start putting your questions into the chat, and we can try to get to those at the end. But I had another question for you, Robert. There's a program called Honorary Forester Program. Right. Tell me about that. And again, there's some celebrity factor that's been involved in that over the years as well.
That's right. I mentioned that earlier with Betty, but I didn't mention that, yes, we officially have a program called the Honorary Forest Ranger Program. And two other people have been given that honor aside from Miss White. One of them was Arnold Schwarzenegger. And that's quite an interesting mashup, if you will. But it was because of his work on climate change issues that he was asked to be our honorary forest ranger for 1 year. And then the next one is Chuck Leavell, who is the keyboardist for the Rolling Stones. And Mr. Leavell has been very involved with conservation issues for his entire adult life. And in fact, he works a lot with private owners and national forests and what have you to work on these conservation issues. So he's the third honorary forest ranger. We do not have a fourth. And anyone out there who's a celebrity, I don't know, maybe the celebrity that's talking right now, if you're interested, just let us know. We were always considered revamping that program because it is an exciting program and it really brings a lot of attention to the importance of conservation and what that means to the future of our lands. Something that is so important to Americans. I think we have a tendency to forget, we developed this concept of publicly held lands and managed by the government for the people. It's huge, and it's quite an inheritance we all receive at birth. We literally manage something like 500 million acres. Forest Service just 200 million of that. And so we're working in concert with our other agencies. For instance, Park Service, that people get us mixed up with. The Park Service is preservation oriented. They work on preservation issues, basically putting a dome, if you will, over the national parks. And then they're usually surrounded by forests. And you see that in almost everywhere you go. You'll see the forest, you'll enter the forest, welcome to the National Forest, and then you'll be in Yellowstone National Park. There's a reason for that. The forests around those national parks were to be managed for their lumber, for their minerals, for the American public, for us.
Well, and I know a lot of people out there do have questions about things that they can do to help. That's always good to address. And Maureen, I think you had some really good tips to share, some do's and don'ts for getting out into nature and camping especially. But what are some things that folks today that are joining us, what are things that we can do to help prevent wildfires? Because this is something we're all addressing right now and we want to help.
Well, surely, and now is, a big time in the summertime when a lot of people are visiting our national forests and public lands. So, we want people to have an enjoyable experience. And the beginning way to do that is to, one, be responsible when you're out there. So we usually give people some good tips. I think that one is to know before you go, know where you're going, have an alternative in case the place that you want to go is full or busy, so that you have an alternative place to go. So you want to plan your trip. You want to know if there's any fire restrictions and for the type of equipment or campfire that you might want to have. So you want to know your fire restrictions before you go out to the forest. And in general, we talk about campfires, and everybody loves a campfire. And be prepared. Be prepared to light the fire and also to get it put out, dead out. So we teach that when you are extinguishing your campfire, you want to always have water and a shovel nearby so that you can work on your extinguishment. But you also want to drown the fire, stir it with your shovel, drown it again, and then feel over the embers with the back of your hand. And if they're cold, they're safe to leave. If they're not cold, you need to do it again.
So you're basically, after you have your s'mores, which I cannot be out in the woods camping without my s'mores. It's kind of necessary.
Right.
So after I have my s'mores, Maureen, I need to basically make a campfire soup.
Exactly. That's
Yes.
exactly it. And make sure it's cold before you go.
I like that campfire stew.
Mhm.
Campfire stew. Yes, maybe we should have a cookbook. So when would be the best time to go camping? Summer is a great time in a lot of places, but it really does vary. Share with us more about that.
Well, it does vary. I mean, it's a big country, so you really can go camping in this country all 4 seasons, depending on where you are. I mean, there's some people who like to go winter camping in cold places, but for the most part, the high seasons are spring, summer, and then fall. So it's but you can find a place to camp almost any time of year.
Now, driving vehicles into nature, there's some special considerations.
Mhm.
What are some things that people need to keep in mind so that they don't accidentally contribute to this,
Sure.
wildfire situation?
Sure. Well, vehicles are a big thing, and maybe the thing that sometimes people don't realize the most, because the undercarriages of our vehicles are hot. So, depending on you, it's important to be careful where you park. So, parking on tall, dry grass, the hot undercarriage can start a wildfire. So, we recommend that if there's parking areas there, that you park on the parking area and not off into the grass if the parking area is full, which is also why we suggest having alternative places to go. Because if that parking area is full, it's a good thing maybe to move on to a place that is a little less crowded. So, there's that part of our vehicle. If we're camping or going boating, and we might be towing a trailer, whether it's a camping trailer or a boat, the other thing to think about is the tow chains and having them secured properly between the trailer and the vehicle. Check those chains every time you begin to move, and make sure they are crossed and properly connected to the vehicle. It's very important.
So Stephanie is echoing something right now that I was actually going to ask you next, and that's if you're living near a forested or wooded area, and you need to make your home more resilient against wildfires, what are some things to consider? What should you keep in mind?
Well, Stephanie's correct. It is important to keep your place clear of dead woody debris, gutters clean, the roof cleaned of leaves and other debris that might be on there, to have a clear space around your home. People can learn about defensible space at firewise.org, and they can also go to smokeybear.com and learn about how to create defensible space around our homes.
Now, this is a question for Robert, and we'll also see what Maureen has to add, but what's the safest way to burn leaves? We're coming into fall coming up, and a lot of people might be raking leaves. They might want to, get rid of them, dispose of them. What do you suggest?
Right. Well, first of all, you should always check to make sure it's okay to burn leaves in your area, because it might be something that's prohibited. So you can't burn them in the traditional way. But if you can burn your leaves, it's very important to make sure they're in an area where they're not near anything that can ignite. Very similar to what Maureen was just mentioning with your home. If you have a combustible material near there, and combustible material can be lots of dry grass. Dry grass fires are pretty intense, and they can burn very fast, and oftentimes burn right up to the forest and then cause forest fires. So the most important thing is to find an area where, when the embers from the ashes, that will come off when you're burning the leaves, that they can't get to easily combustible. It's usually about 150 feet or 200 feet from there, and certainly not on a windy day. Absolutely. If you are planning to burn your leaf pile and it just happens to be windy that day, and I'm talking over maybe 5 miles per hour, unless it's a still day, do not burn your leaves, especially if you're near combustible things. Absolutely.
Maureen, do you have anything to add on that? Because we have lots of questions coming in, so I'm going to continue with
Cool.
questions too.
Yeah, I would just add, whenever we're burning any kind of debris outside, and like Robert said, if it's allowed in your area, make sure that you keep your burn piles small, not tall, as we used to like to say. Have an area cleared around it so that it's down to bare ground, so that you can, protect, keep it from spreading. And of course, never burn on a windy day, as Robert mentioned.
And I'm loving seeing these comments. I just have to say these tips are great, but Julia is just commenting too. A lot of great comments on wonderful places that we all like to enjoy outside and on our public lands. And the Boundary Waters in northern Minnesota is a favorite place to go camping. It is so beautiful. So keep sharing your love for our national forests and these public lands as well. And your happy birthday wishes are much appreciated. We know Smokey appreciates it. So is there a wildfire season? When do wildfires happen, Robert?
Well, I actually wrote a feature about that a while ago because, yes, traditionally wildfire season starts in late May, around that time, and then goes through October. I'm talking about Southern California. But because of climate change, we are warming up, and we're having fires almost all year round now. So it is a problem, and we're moving away from calling it fire season anymore because it does happen all year round in some cases. So unfortunately, yes, it's something that can happen any time of the year. However, these seasons you must be most aware of are pretty much late May to October, depending on where you are in the country. As one area dries out, another area gets colder or wetter or whatever, and it moves around. So it's not like, oh, this is where it's going to be the hottest and burn the most, always in the same area. It just doesn't happen because of the nature of the giant country we call the United States and the many different climates we have within this country.
And I would love to know also, because I'm seeing some questions come in, a lot of people are asking Maureen, what can we do to help teach other people, but especially kids, about wildfire prevention?
Well, I think, it starts with the example that we set, showing, when we're enjoying as adults, enjoying a campfire, being always staying with the fire, having an adult with the fire. It's not while it's most enjoyable, it's not something that we play with. So, I think the behavior that we show them begins to be some of the first and most important lessons that kids learn about fires. And, showing them, when it's appropriate and inappropriate to have a campfire, and just showing them how to enjoy, not destroy,
Making that campfire stew, making sure it's all extinguished. Right. That's definitely a good tip. Mm-hmm. And we do have a question from Caitlin. I'm going to try to pronounce these names. I do like to call your names out because I appreciate you so much personally asking questions out there. And again, keep putting your questions in the chat because we're starting to do some Q&A coming in from you. But she's asking, do you have any programs that kids can participate in? That's a question for Maureen or Robert or both of you. What about programs that kids can participate in?
Well, depending on where you might be around the country, we do have a junior ranger program that can be found at symbols.gov. So there is the junior ranger program that kids can learn more about, the outdoors and Smokey Bear and how to enjoy being outdoors. And we do have a new mobile app for kids. It's a game with Smokey Bear, and it is a free download. It's called Smokey Scouts. It was created by some of our state partners and the Columbus College of Art and Design, and it's available for free on in the Google App Store as well as the Apple App Store. It's called Smokey Scouts. It's a fun game.
And I just wanted to add really quick onto that junior ranger program. A neighbor of mine, when I told her I worked for the Forest Service, that was the first thing she said. I was a junior ranger. She remembered it so much, and it just drives home how important it is to get kids involved in nature.
Right.
It's so crucially important.
That's right. So fun. Any of you out there have been junior rangers or have had Smokey Bear sightings during your lifetime? We'd love to see that in the comments as well. Because I've seen a lot of people that have had like personal experiences with Smokey Bear out there. I know I was able to see him in Wyoming. I was in Jackson Hole for Kids to Parks Day. Smokey Bear made an appearance. Mm-hmm. Is there a listing? Raya out there is saying, is there a listing of events where we can look up to see where Smokey Bear is making appearances? I know things have changed during the pandemic, but where do people go in general to find information about Smokey Bear?
Well, you can ask your local forest office if you know where Smokey is going to be, if there's an upcoming event that he might be there. You can ask your state forestry office also. They also will have Smokey at various events around the country. We don't have a calendar that we keep, but you can ask your local offices for, you know, when Smokey's making an appearance. I know he was just in some parades in West Virginia yesterday. Prior to his birthday, so he gets around.
Robert, that's where the costume is right now. Gotta go to West Virginia to find it.
Yeah, and I also want to point out that Maureen, can't they also request Smokey if a town wants? It's got to be fire prevention, right? It's got to be fire prevention oriented, but can't they request Smokey?
Right. If there's a wildfire prevention event and you'd like to have Smokey there, you can contact your local forest office or your local state forestry office and invite them to attend.
Well, Bill's asking a question. I'm curious to hear about this. Why is it Smoky Mountains without an E? And Smokey Bear has an E in it, right?
Mm-hmm.
Smokey Bear.
Exactly. Right. Well, the Smoky Mountains is because of the humidity that is in that area, you know, where it looks very white, and oftentimes with the high humidity, so it looks like has smoke on it. So the proper way to write that would be SMOKY, as opposed to the EY, which is really just Smokey's name.
That's right.
Mm-hmm.
Well, and this is a fun question too. Is Smokey still friends with Woodsy Owl? Robert, can you answer that?
They're best friends. I mean, there's no competition. I mean, come on, it's not the Jan and Marcia thing, right? I mean, everybody knows Smokey, and we have a harder time getting Woodsy out there. And I said, well, they have different jobs. I mean, Smokey is, I liken him to Elizabeth Taylor, right? Marilyn Monroe. Everyone knows Smokey. Woodsy's more like Jane Goodall. He's got he's got a stronger, more intense message about conservation. That's about 100 words long, so it's just not as easy in people's mind to get their heads wrapped around Woodsy. And Woodsy's made a very dramatic change too, as well. He started out as this cute little tubby owl, and now he's like the hiking, guy. So at any rate, yeah, they get along well. They love each other. No tension there at all.
Well, they are friends, and Woodsy's celebrating his 50th year this year.
That's right.
And Smokey has helped him celebrate that too.
Yes, he has. They are buddies.
Mm-hmm.
Well, and I love this comment. Yes, Smokey visits us quite often in Kernville, California, and the Kern River Valley. We got some folks out there whose kids grew up with Smokey Bear. Of course, we all know. I feel like I love the polls that tell us how many Americans know about Smokey Bear, because there are quite a few, which is really cool. Which brings another question up that I've seen come in. Stefan Mueller, where can I get Smokey Bear merchandise? A lot of people are asking that. Michelle's asking as well.
Right.
She wants a little Smokey Bear plush.
Oh, well, we do have a website. There's a licensing website on the Forest Service website, and so you can get to it. It shows all the licensees and what they sell, and it is www.fs.usda.gov/Smokey Bear licensing. And that's the shortcut to get you to the list.
We've got another question coming in. And this is from C.A. Brian, B-R-O-N. Does Smokey come to Texas? Again, I think this relates a little bit to the list of Smokey sightings. We're out there. I think there's going to be people on social media now, like trying to post where they're seeing Smokey. This is going to get crazy. Tell us again, Maureen, how to find Smokey Bear.
Okay. Well, in Texas, you can contact the Texas A&M Forest Service, and also the U.S. Forest Service, National Forests in Texas.
Well, keep those questions coming in. I see another one. Has Smokey ever ridden in the Smokey Bear balloon? Because we did see a comment earlier about Smokey being in various parades.
Right. Well, Smokey doesn't ride in the balloon. Oh, I know what they're talking about. It's not just it's the hot air balloon that they are talking about. The Friends of Smokey Bear have a hot air balloon, and I would have to say that he probably has ridden in the balloon. We also have he's also been in the Macy's Thanksgiving Day Parade too.
Yes.
A number of times.
Yes.
I mean, well, it's so funny. I live in New York City and I love seeing them. I got to see them blow up all those balloons last year. It was so cool. So it's really fun to see Smokey Bear in the parade. Kevin's asking about, or making a suggestion. He wants to see an origin story type movie about Smokey. Because I think the information you both have shared today, Maureen and Robert, I think it's so interesting. I think the whole story is really interesting. Is there going to be a movie? Should the Charles and Charlie team be making this?
Well, there have been television programs in the past. There was, but we don't have any plans right now for a full-length origin story at this point. But you never know; it could happen, right?
Could be some producers out there, and maybe we'll get one, right? You never know.
It's a great story. Vicky Ballinger is asking, what is the percentage of weather versus human-caused wildfire startups? She said New Mexico has had a tough spring that continued into the start of monsoon season. So that's an important thing to understand.
So weather related in that natural cause fires. So it's about 87% of the wildfires nationwide are caused by humans. The other 13 are natural cause fires.
Michelle really wants to write Smokey Bear a letter and is asking again, can you just repeat that address, Maureen, the fan mail address?
Sure. It is Smokey Bear Headquarters, Washington, D.C., 20252.
This is a really interesting question from Dee Dee, because I hadn't really thought about this. So thanks for asking, Dee Dee. And again, if you guys have more questions, please put them in the chat. And please, if you want to hear us sing happy birthday at the end of this live stream, we'd love for you to post it in the comments because we need to be motivated to sing again. Robert was so good, but if Maureen and I are going to join, we might need some motivation. But I love this question, Dee Dee. Is there a list of where Smokey Bear statues are located? Are there Smokey Bear statues out there?
Well, there are sculptures that are out there. There are sculptures that are, individually done for that are in some communities. We don't actually have a list. You can actually, we have one of our licensees that does make a large size statue, and that statue is in many places. You saw the one that was at the picture of the one that was at the National Zoo. I know that the Maine Forest Service has some statues of Smokey on the interstates at the at their welcome centers. So there's multiple ones out there. I just don't have a list of all the locations.
Maybe someone out there in the interweb world should put that together or come up with a hashtag so we can follow it. And if you do, let us know.
To see that.
Yeah, go to all our social media pages and shout it out to us. We'd love to hear about it.
It'd be a great destination spot, right?
That'd be fun. Like if you could then have a passport to visit all the Smokey Bear sites. And Noelle is asking if Smokey writes back. Robert might be able to address this because if you're on social media, you can sometimes hear back from Smokey Bear. I saw a tweet earlier.
You can. Occasionally he will respond. I can't guarantee he will every time, but yes, he does. He does respond.
Yeah. He writes back too if you write to his headquarters.
Oh, that for sure. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Oh, cool. I love it. I love it. Yvonne is asking if Smokey has any plans to come back home to the National Zoo for any events. Does anyone know about that? Maureen, perhaps?
We don't have any events planned for them now. And I would say, I guess stay tuned. We don't have anything on the books for this year with Smokey at the National Zoo.
Maureen, do they still have the enclosure there? I believe they do. You mentioned this at the post office, but do they still have the actual enclosure?
It was, yeah, the enclosure was there. I myself haven't been to the zoo in a little bit of time. We had an exhibit there for the 75th birthday, and it stayed up until just this spring. So that whole exhibit is now gone. I think we saw some pictures of that at the very beginning of our program here. So that, I think, I can't really speak to see if there's remnants now of the exhibit there because I haven't been there in several months, but yeah.
I totally wanted that statue. I thought it was really cool. I'm like, what's happening to the statue when this is over? I'll bring it home to my house.
Uh-huh.
Oh, Brenda's saying that Utah's Red Rocks, they have a beautiful statue there.
Nice. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, if you guys are out there, if you know about these places, please let us know because it's kind of interesting. I think someone should be kind of marking, these different places. And there's a lot of folks out here joining us today, and we thank you so much for doing so, that are hikers, that love to be out in nature. I think that it's might be a good time to have a song. I think that everybody out there who's joining us, and will do it too, should be singing happy birthday to Smokey Bear. There's been so much good information. Thanks to the Ad Council, the National Association of Foresters, USDA Foresters, all of you guys for putting this together. Thank you, Stephanie, for your words of encouragement for us to sing today. And Gwen and Brenda, all of you, Dolores, commenting and sharing with us. This is such a special way to celebrate. I'm so happy to be on here piping in from my travel adventures around the world.
Nice.
I think we should sing Smokey Bear happy birthday. What do you guys think?
Sure. Let's do it.
Robert, do you want to kick us off?
Sure. A 1, a 2, a 3. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, dear Smokey. Happy birthday to you.
All right.
Thank you, everyone out there singing with us. And we're so glad you joined us. We hope you learned something and continue to spread the word about this live stream so people can rewatch it and use the hashtag #SingForSmokey. Robert, Maureen, you guys are so much fun to hang out with. I was learning when I get to interact with you all. And we really thank all of you out there who joined us from all over the USA, and love you all. We will continue to celebrate Smokey Bear's birthday the rest of today.
All right. Thank you, Darlie.
Thank you, Darlie.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.
Thank you.